So with releases such as Metro Exodus and upcoming releases like The Outer Worlds, there's been a lot of debate about open world games and whether or not players have become exhausted with them. It seems open world games have become popular and a desire among players, considering a lot of newer titles have open worlds. However, that's not entirely true. So the question is, should game developers stop making almost every title an open world?
There's nothing wrong with the chair, is there?
No.
First, let's make one thing clear. This video will be based solely on my opinion. Please keep that in mind. So some of the most popular games ever were open world. GTA, Breath of the Wild, the Elder Scrolls series, the Fallout series, the last two Red Dead Redemption games, Horizon Zero Dawn, and more. When we look at each game, one thing they all have in common is hours upon hours of content, providing players with a sandbox environment and a story so wrapped up in side quests and other activities that it makes it possible to replay the main story time and time again, as well as to discover new things every time they play. GTA 5 was released in 2013 and to this day remains one of the most popular games, but also it had constant updates and offers a fun online experience. Role-playing games like Skyrim and Horizon Zero Dawn are two more titles that are open world and remain some of the most popular appreciated games of all time. They provide players with characters and skills for the player to upgrade and a reason for players to keep progressing and participating in side activities to build their character. There's different weapons and different powers, different outfits, and so on. It's no wonder they're so popular. So if open world games are giving players so much content and gameplay, why and how are people getting so bored with them?
I can't imagine why.
Well, they're not necessarily tired of open world games, they're just tired of every title being open world, or becoming open world. Let me explain. Linear games like BioShock, The Last of Us, God of War, Life is Strange, and Titanfall 2 are some of the most popular linear games to date, and there's one thing they all have in common: phenomenal storytelling. Inside the stories are relatable characters and tense situations that fill the gap between gameplay and never allow for dull moments. To be fair, there are open world games that also share these traits, like Horizon Zero Dawn, for example, and the Batman Arkham games. But unlike open world games, linear games don't have many, if any, side activities and fetch quests that some players just don't enjoy. Games like Tomb Raider, Uncharted, Quantum Break, and God of War offer extreme, high action and combat scenes that you just don't get with many open world games. Linear games allow developers to direct players accordingly and to give the most intense experience possible, whereas open worlds let the player loose to do what they want. When Outer Worlds was announced, so many gamers out there, especially fans of the Fallout series, went nuts, excited for the original creators of Fallout and Fallout New Vegas to be back in the saddle and releasing something players expected to be New Vegas 2.0. Fans anxiously waited in anticipation for news on the game, but then Obsidian came out and said that the Outer Worlds wouldn't be open world. Some fans felt highly let down. Others were okay with it because they either trusted Obsidian or they were just plain tired of open world games. So how will a linear RPG fare? Usually RPGs let you loose to build your character as you please in a huge open world. But now the king of RPG says their next big title will be linear? Well, while I love open world games and prefer more, I enjoy linear games all the same. It all depends on how they're done. For example, Mass Effect, one of the greatest RPGs ever, was linear. The newer South Park games, also developed by Obsidian, were linear. Persona and even some Final Fantasy games are somewhat linear. It doesn't make them bad by any means. But I also don't think it's a bad thing for games to approach the open world design. Like I said, I love it. Again, it just depends on how it's done. For example, survival games. Honestly, I think this is one example where people are actually getting exhausted with open world games. There are so many survival games coming out that almost all of them are the same thing every time. When done right, they're a lot of fun, but most of them offer little to no story and or cutscenes. Now don't get me wrong, games don't need cutscenes to be great. One of my favorite games of all time, The Forest, is a survival game with almost no cutscenes. But what makes it great is the suspense and horror elements. You're alone on an island full of cannibals and have to build a base and defense systems just to survive. This really hadn't been done before. On the other hand, a prime example of a boring, empty open world that failed to clutch players in an interesting story with a detailed world and believable character development is Fallout 76. Fallout is my favorite series of all time, and granted, I did have a little bit of fun with 76, but I got bored real quick. There's just not enough interaction to keep you you entertained. There was a story, but the way in which it was told, reading, just failed to entertain me among many other players. Granted, this is all opinion based. There are people who love sandbox games with little to no story. So when 4A announced that Metro Exodus would introduce larger open levels, fans became nervous that it wasn't going to deliver. But it delivered well, and Metro Exodus has received phenomenal reviews. But again, people complain because they're sick of seeing open world games. It's understandable, but they just offer so much more, especially in a world where developers are expected to create games with 40 hours of content on such a limited budget. Sometimes open levels are a good way to go and an easy way to meet such expectations. Personally, I want more open worlds, preferably more RPGs. I love the idea of building my character however I want, and I love that every playthrough can be different, and I love that you can play for endless hours and still discover things you never knew were there. At the same time, games like BioShock, Dishonored, Wolfenstein, Batman Arkham Asylum, Prey, Portal, and Quantum Break, among many other, are some of my all-time favorites. In my opinion, open world games are not getting out of hand. In fact, I wish there were more. The only time I consider them boring is when they're huge and lack story and content, i.e. Fallout 76. So in short, the answer is this: no, open world games are not getting out of hand. If the game can be done well in an open world, and if the developers take the time to perfect it, players will love it. For example, The Witcher, Red Dead Redemption 2, Fallout, Dying Light, Just Cause, Grand Theft Auto, Far Cry, and so much more. If developers want to try the open world approach with a game that is usually linear, I say go for it. But the fans are fans of that game for a reason, so don't stray too far. What do you guys think? Are you tired of open world games, or do you wish there were more? And what do you think about the Outer Worlds being mostly linear? Personally, this is a game I'm highly looking forward to, and I think Obsidian knows what they're doing, and the game will exceed expectations. Let me know your opinions, and thanks for watching. Don't forget to like and subscribe, as I plan on releasing more gaming related videos in the future. Until then, much love and peace.